G'day folks, Sean here from Air Photography. So this is my beginner's guide for the brand new DJI Osmo 360. Whenever a new camera like this gets released, I like to create a beginner's guide to help those who are brand new get up and running and familiarized with the hardware. And that can be especially true with something like a 360 camera because they're not quite like a traditional camera. Now we're going to keep this beginner guide very basic. We're going to go over some of the basic things you need to know to get up and running, filming, and exporting your 360 content. I'm going to make more advanced tutorials as time goes on. So if this is a camera you are thinking of purchasing or you have recently purchased, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of them. Now DJI is going to be offering several different packages. If you purchase the base kit, which is basically just the camera, this is everything you're going to get inside the package. You're going to get a carrying case. You're going to get the camera. You're going to get a lens cover, a USB-C charging and data cable. You're going to get a cleaning cloth for the lenses. And you're going to get a little information booklet. Another common package they will be offering is something called the Adventure Combo. And with it, you get what we just already discussed. But on top of that, you're going to get a charging hub. And you're also going to get a total of 3 batteries. If you get the base kit, you're going to get 1 battery. But with the Adventure Combo, you're going to get a total of 3. You also get a magnetic mount. And we'll take a look at how all this works here coming up in a minute. And you're going to get an extension pole. Now, personally myself, I would recommend this kit if it's in your budget. Those extra batteries are indeed very handy. And of course, you're going to need some kind of handle or extension pole to really make use of the 360 camera. So let's go ahead here and we're going to take a look around the camera. The first thing you're going to notice, this camera has 2 lenses, one on the front, one on the back. They stick out, so you do have to be extremely careful with a 360 camera. You definitely don't want to set this down on anything porous, such as rock or concrete. Even setting it on a desk like this can be risky. Ideally, that's where you're going to use your lens guard if you have to set the camera down or you're going to be putting it away. It just slides over the lens like that, and then you can safely set it down or put it in a camera bag. Alternatively, you can use the little case that comes with it. It just tucks in there nicely, and again, that'll keep it protected. Now looking around the camera, on this side here, you can see we have a big door. There's a latch mechanism there that we have to press in. Once it's pressed in, we can pull down, and that allows us to open the door. Under there, we have a slot for the memory card, and that's where we install the battery, which we will be taking a look at here in a minute. If we go over to the other side, we have another door. Again, there's a latch on it that we have to slide to the side, and then we can pull it down to open the door. Under there, we have a USB-C port. We can use that for various purposes, plugging it into computers, transferring data, but most notably, that's going to be used for charging. And if you happen to accidentally pull that door off, not to worry, it is designed to come off. If it does happen to come off on you, there's a little notch there and a pin there on the camera. You're just going to line them up and then just snap it back in. Right above that USB-C door, we have a power button. If we flip the camera over, you can see here we have our touch screen. This is how we're going to preview our shot, frame our shot, but that's also how we adjust our settings. And again, we will be taking a look at that as we go along. Right below the touchscreen, we have 2 other buttons. This one here on the left-hand side is our shutter button and record button. When the camera's powered on, that's how we can start and stop recording or take a photo. The other side is kind of multi-purpose. There's a few different things we can do with it. At the bottom here, we have a quarter 20. That's how we can connect it to various accessories such as extension poles. The Osmo 360 also features magnetic mounting. And if you look there, we have 4 little pins. So there are some accessories that can feed power directly into the camera without having to swap out the battery. Now we're not going to be getting into that into this video, but I just wanted to point that out. Now depending on what kit you get, you're either going to get 1 battery or a total of 3 batteries. So I'm going to grab a battery here and we're going to talk about installing the battery, installing memory, and how to charge it up. So the first thing we're going to do is again go to the side of the camera that has the battery bay. We'll pull the latch over. We'll open it up and you can see again there's where the battery is installed. And to install the battery, the leads are going to be facing the lenses and it will just drop right down in there. You may have to press in a little bit to make sure it seats correctly. While we have that open, we may as well install our memory card. And memory cards are not included with the camera. There is internal storage built into the camera, 105 gigabytes. Now that's probably not going to be enough because 360 files can get quite large. I would recommend purchasing a large memory card. Something like 256 or even 512 is ideal. Right now I've got a SanDisk Extreme Pro. This is 256 gigabytes. It doesn't really matter so much of the brand. DJI does list compatible cards that they recommend on their website. Myself, I've always used the Extreme Pros by SanDisk, and I've been very happy with them. To install it, we're going to take the graphics side of the memory card, and we're going to have it facing the battery. And we're just going to insert it into the memory card slot there. And you'll just have to use your fingernail and press it in until it clicks. Now, when it comes to charging the camera and charging the batteries in the charging case, you'll notice that it did not come with a charging brick. We did get a USB-C to USB-C cable, so this can be used with any existing charging bricks that you have that are USB-C. Most of the time we have plenty kicking around from our cell phones and tablets. DJI offers a few charging solutions on their website, and they all work well. Quite often I use this charger. This is a 65-watt charger from Anker. And something like this also works extremely well. Now, depending on what package you've purchased, you're either going to be charging your battery right in the camera, or you're going to be using a combination of both, or just the charging case. To charge up the battery in the camera, again, we're going to press that tab to open up the USB-C door. And we're just going to plug it into USB-C power. You can see we get a graphic right there on the screen, and that's going to show us the percentage. This supports quick charging, so it actually charges fairly quickly. Now, ideally, if you have a charging battery case, you're best to charge your batteries in this. When your batteries are installed in there, you can do a quick press on that button, and that'll show you which ones are fully charged. There'll be a green light. That means it's fully charged. If it needs to be charged, you can see there's a yellow light. If there's no battery installed, then it just won't light up. And when you charge up your batteries, you don't have to fill it right up. You can have all 3 in there, 2, or even just 1. And again, you just plug the USB-C in, and it will go ahead and start charging. These lights will all turn green when the batteries are fully charged. And just as a quick tip, when you have batteries installed in this charging case can act as a power bank. So if you're out filming and say your smartphone gets a little low in power, and that's your priority for charging, you can actually just plug it into the charging case, and you can transfer power from these batteries to your smartphone. Now, when it comes to 360-degree cameras, there's many different ways in which you can utilize them when it comes to mounting. The most common way is by using an extension pole. When extended, it'll look like the camera's floating out in front of you. The extension pole becomes invisible. Now, it does not have to be the DJI brand extension pole in order for it to be invisible. Any extension pole, for the most part, will work. And there's a couple different ways in which we can attach it. First off is the 1/4-20 connector. That's going to be the most common way. It just screws into the bottom. And the nice thing about using a 1/4-20 with this style of extension pole is, the camera is always going to be exactly straight to the pole. And that's extremely important because you want the pole or the mount to be in the stitch line of the 2 lenses. So if you were to use a pole that had a slight bend to it, the camera wouldn't be able to remove it in the software. Now, the other way to connect it is by using a magnetic mount. And as mentioned, the Adventure Combo comes with a magnetic mount, and this mount can be handy for a couple different reasons. First of all, if you're going to be moving your camera from mount to mount frequently, this makes it a lot easier. But this one here is actually a swivel, and I'll show you why that's important here in a minute. With it, what we're going to do is attach the pole directly to the magnetic mount. And now we'll attach the magnetic mount directly to the camera. You just want to make sure it clicks in on both sides. That way you're going to have a nice firm connection. To remove it, there's a clip on each side. You just press in and pull apart. And the way this is designed, it will still keep the pole invisible. It's going to be right in that stitch line. But this swivel mount has an extra feature. You can see here we have this button on the front. When we press on it, it allows it to angle and locks in at not quite a 45-degree angle, but almost. Now, you don't want to film in 360 mode like this, but where that can be handy is if you're using single lens mode, where you're only going to be recording from one lens, and you want to do some vlogging. That's going to put the camera at a more natural angle, because you want the lens pointing directly at you. When you're filming in 360 mode, where you're using both lenses, you don't have to have the lens pointing right at you because the camera is going to be recording in 360 degrees all the way around. So it doesn't matter which way the camera is pointing. And there's all different types of mounts for 360 cameras depending on the activity you're going to be doing. There are handlebar mounts for motorcycles and bicycles. different backpack mounts, chest mounts. So it really just depends on what you're going to be using your camera for. I am going to be working on a full accessory guide for the Osmo 360. So again, if this is a camera you're interested in, stay tuned for that, as I will be going over some of the most common accessories for it. Now, before we can go ahead and use the camera, we need to do a few things first. We need to activate it, and we need to update the firmware. The easiest way to do that is with your smartphone or tablet and download the DJI Mimo app. So I have mine installed here already, so I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Now, if you're a brand new user, you're going to have to create a DJI account. When you launch the app, it gives you the option to log in with an existing account, or it'll give you the option to create a new account. So at this point, you just want to go ahead and do that. Now, once that's done, we're going to go ahead and power on the camera so we can connect it to the app. Now, powering on the Osmo 360 is very simple. We're just going to do a quick press on the power button. And you're going to notice right away, we get an option there to set our language. So I'm going to select English. At this point on the screen, it gives us a QR code. Now that will take us directly to download the app if you haven't done so already. And it also gives us an option to skip this step where we don't have to activate it or update the firmware. Now, I highly recommend not doing that because the firmware update can add a lot of important features, make sure everything is going to run smoothly for you. So I would highly recommend activating it and updating the firmware first before you use it. And if it doesn't pop up right away, sometimes it will detect it right away and it will prompt you to connect to it. All you have to do is hit the camera button there at the bottom, and it's going to start searching for cameras in the area. And as you can see, it picked up the Osmo 360 there. So I'm going to tap on connect. And for the first time connecting a camera to the app, it's going to give you a code and you have to accept it. That's just so you don't randomly connect to somebody else's camera. So I'm going to tap accept. Let's switch my tablet here into portrait. So we have to agree to their terms. Now it's asking us to activate the Osmo 360. I'll click next. And there we go. It's now activated. Now at this point, it's going to ask if you want to purchase DJI Care Refresh. That's going to be a personal thing. It's basically extra insurance for your camera if you happen to damage it. You can purchase a 1-year plan or a 2-year plan. If you want to purchase the DJI Care Refresh, you tap at the bottom. If you want to skip that step, you hit skip there at the top. So we get a confirmation there that it has been successfully activated. Now I'm going to tap on Get Started. At this point, it's just going to give us some information about the camera. I'm going to tap on Next. And it's going to prompt you to connect to the Wi-Fi of the camera. So I'm going to tap Join, and it's going to connect to the camera's Wi-Fi, and then it should prompt me to update the firmware right away. And as you can see there, it did prompt me to update the firmware. So I'm going to tap Install, and it's going to go ahead and download it, transfer it directly to the camera, and automatically install it. This can take anywhere from a few minutes upwards of 10 minutes, depending on the file size and your internet speed. So as you can see there, we got a confirmation that the firmware was updated. The camera went ahead and restarted, and we also got confirmation on the camera. Now it's just asking me to set the language again. So I'll tap English, and now the camera is ready to use. Now, for the very first time, you're going to get a little bit of a tour on the camera. So it'll ask you to do a few things just to get you familiarized with how to navigate the menu. But we're going to take a closer look at that here coming up in a minute. The DJI Mimo app is a really powerful tool. It's going to allow you to manage all the content you capture with your Osmo 360, and it also has a lot of powerful built-in editing tools. And we're going to get into all that, and I'll show you a few things with that coming up here later on in the tutorial. But I just want to kind of go over a few things with you first. Now, as mentioned, there's 2 different main modes that you're going to be capturing in. You're going to capture in spherical mode or single lens mode. Spherical mode, again, is when you're using both lenses, and that's going to capture all the way around you. That allows you to later on reframe the video. You can set the perspective, the aspect ratio, and then you can go ahead and export that as a flat video that you can share to social media, YouTube, and other platforms like that. The other way to utilize it is single lens mode, and that's where you're going to be capturing from either one lens, the front or the back. In that mode, basically it works just like a regular camera. In single lens mode, you actually have to frame it because what you see on the preview screen is what it's going to be capturing. But what's really important to note is content captured in single lens mode is just like any other video file. It's going to be stored either on the internal memory or the memory card, depending on what you have set. You don't have to do anything to it. It's already going to be stabilized in a usable format. So you can just transfer it to your tablet or phone. You can share it or do some more editing to it if you wish. But the spherical video that you film in 360, before you use it, has to be brought into the app because you have to go in and do the framing and then export it as a flat video. Now, if you don't want to do your editing on a tablet or a smartphone, DJI has some studio software that can be installed on a laptop or desktop. It's compatible with both Mac or Windows, and that allows you to edit it on your home computer. Personally, I find it just as easy to do it on a tablet or on a smartphone, but that's all going to boil down to personal preference. In this video, we're going to stick to mobile, but I may make a more advanced tutorial down the road where we take a look at the desktop app. So at this point, we're going to take a quick look around the menu system. Again, we're going to power it on by doing a quick press on the power button. And to power it off, it's a little bit different. What we're going to do is a press and hold. That will go ahead and power it off. Now I'm just going to give you a rundown of the different icons on the screen there. At the top has an icon of a battery, shows us how much battery percentage is left. It's saying 71% is left on the battery that I currently have installed. Over on the left-hand side at the top has a number. It's saying 3 hours and 28 minutes. That's telling me I have enough space to record for 3 hours and 28 minutes on the memory card. And that will change depending on your settings and, of course, what mode you're in. If you switch it to photo mode, it'll tell you how many photos you can take. Below that, we have a play button. That's how we access media that we've recorded on the memory card or internal storage. And we're going to take a closer look at all these features coming up. I just want to give you a rundown first. Below that, there's a little picture of a globe that's signifying the mode we're in. And again, we'll take a look at that here coming up. At the bottom in the center, tells us we're in 8K at 30 frames per second in a wide field of view. So that's giving us our resolution and frame rate. Over here, we have a switch button that allows us to switch back and forth between the front and rear lens. On the right-hand side in the middle, we have a settings button that brings up some advanced settings, which we'll take a closer look at here coming up. And that's basically it. It's a pretty simple layout. As mentioned, this bottom right-hand corner signifies what mode we're in. The icon there will change depending on what mode we're in. And we can tap on that, and that's going to bring up this screen here. At the top there, you can... Now it keeps wanting to shut off. It only is up for a minute if you don't change a setting. But at the top there it says 360, but it also says single lens. So that's how you switch back and forth between 360 mode and single lens mode. So it just depends on what type of content you want to capture. If you want to capture spherical video, you'll keep it in 360. If you want to use it like a more traditional camera, you'll select single lens mode. And you can see how the camera icon will change depending on what mode you're in. Now, each one of these modes has sub-modes, so we can do panoramic photos, video, we have super night mode, selfie mode, vortex, and time-lapse. Now, I'm not going to get into all those modes in this video. We're going to keep things very basic, but as mentioned, I will be making some more advanced tutorials over the coming weeks and months. And it's the same for single lens mode. If we switch to single lens mode, you can see we can switch from photo to video and to boost mode. When you're in single lens mode, it just offers you a few basic capture options. Down at the bottom here again, that's our frame rate and resolution. We can tap on that, and that's how we can set all the parameters that we want. And those options will be different depending if you're in spherical mode or in single lens mode. For example, if I put it over to 360, you can see it now lists max resolution is 8K. And for the most part, that's going to be your most common filming mode in 360. 8K at 30 frames per second. Now there's some other options here depending on the type of capture mode, but again, we're going to keep this video basic. If you're in single lens mode, when we click at resolutions, it gives us all different types of options that we can set. For the most part, when I'm filming, I'm going to be filming in 4K at 30 frames per second, but you can go all the way up to 5K. Now one thing you will notice there, it says 4K 16:9 or 4K 4:3. That's basically the aspect ratio of the video. The most common one you're going to be filming in is 16:9. That's a traditional aspect. Filming in 4:3 just gives you a little bit more flexibility when editing. But just as a general rule of thumb, in 360 mode, you're going to be filming at 8K, and in single lens mode, you're going to be filming in 4K or 5K. That's all going to be personal preference. And that's what it's going to be set by default when the camera's brand new. You don't actually have to go in and adjust that. Now, one thing I do want to point out here, when in single lens mode, it can be important to set your field of view. And we do so by tapping at the top there where it says wide. You can see it gives us a couple options on this page. On the left-hand side, that's our stabilization level. And on the right-hand side is the field of view. Most common stabilization is going to be rock steady. For myself, that's what I would recommend leaving it in for most activities. But your field of view you may want to adjust. A wide field of view is a good general all-around field of view. It's going to give you lots of data in the screen, but it will introduce a little bit of distortion. If you want to get rid of that distortion, you have to go to de-warp. You can see at the back of my desk there how the curve is now gone. But that's going to be a tighter field of view, so you're not going to be able to fit as much in the screen. The other thing you can do is go to ultra wide. That's going to allow really immersive video, lots of detail, lots of the background, but you are going to introduce some distortion again. So that will just boil down to personal preference and depending on what you're filming. When filming in single lens mode, you can film from the front camera or the back camera, and you can just tap that button there, and that'll switch back and forth between the different lenses. Now, I know if you're brand new, some of this might all seem a little confusing, but it does actually get really easy, and you'll pick it up really quickly once you start playing with the camera. Now, a couple other things on the menu system here. We can swipe down from the top. That's going to give us some basic settings, common things that people change. Again, I'm not going to go through all these in this video, but it's a good idea to go through them to see what's all there. Now, there are a few things we will be touching base on as we go along. Most notably this one here at the top right-hand side. That's going to take us deeper into the settings. Again, I would just go through them just to familiarize yourself with everything that's there. We can also swipe over. That's going to bring up even more stuff. And what I do want to show you in here is this one here. It's a little icon of a memory card. That's how we switch back and forth between the internal memory and the external memory. So if you're filming, say, and your memory card becomes full, you can switch it to the internal memory. You can see we have 105 gigabytes of available space, and that allows you to continue recording. So I just wanted to point that out. I've already shown you this here. If we tap on that side, that's going to bring up some more advanced settings. We can enable Pro mode. If you're a person who wants to go in and set your own white balance and ISO and different settings like that, that's how you would do that. But again, we're not going to get too deep into that in this video. But the other thing we can do from this main screen is preview media that we've captured. And we do so by tapping on that play button. And what's going to happen is it's going to bring up the very last video that we've captured, which was just here at my desk. We can play through it. We can mute it. We have volume control there at the top. We can tap those icons there. That'll allow us to favorite it, or we can delete it. But if we tap that grid there at the top, that's going to bring up all the content we currently have stored on the memory card. We can preview whichever one we want. And we can scrub through it by dragging that bar at the bottom. To get out of that menu, we just swipe over from the right-hand side. Now, a couple other things I want to touch base on here. This power button at the side, when the camera's powered on, we can actually use it to cycle through settings as well. So for example, I'm in single lens mode, and as I press that button quickly,
photo, video, photo, video.
You can see it's going to cycle through the different filming modes such as photo and video. Now that's just doing a quick press on it. If we were to do a long press and hold, that would power the camera off. And again, if I go to 360 mode, that'll cycle through
photo, panoramic video, panoramic photo, panoramic video.
That'll cycle through photo and video mode. And this button down here is also another button for quick access to things. And you can change the behavior of the buttons in the settings. I'm not going to get into that into this video, but it is something that's pretty easy to do. I'm going to make a separate tutorial for that. But by default, when we press that button down at the bottom, as you can see, it just switches back and forth between the different lenses, essentially doing the same thing that button there above it does. Now let's get into capturing, because there's a few different ways in which we can capture. The most common way is just by using the shutter button. The camera's powered on, and I just tap record. And of course, it's going to go ahead and start recording. Press it again, and it will stop recording. And it works the same way whether you're in 360 mode or in single lens mode. If we switch to photo mode, of course it's going to go ahead and take a photo. But there are three other ways in which we can capture. One is called quick capture, and I'm going to go ahead and power the camera off here for a minute. Quick capture basically allows you just to start capturing something quickly. If you've got your camera powered off and something interesting is happening, instead of pressing the power button, setting the modes, you can actually just press the record button while it's powered off. And you can see what happened there. It just turned on instantly, took a photo, and then powered back off. And the reason why it took a photo is that was the last mode we were in. If we had been in video mode, it would have just automatically turned on and started recording. Now again, you can set the behavior of the quick capture feature in the settings. If you would prefer to always have it just go in and record, you can set that out accordingly. So that can be a handy feature if something's happening quickly, you don't have time to power the camera on and set the settings, you can just tap on the quick capture. Now, two other ways to capture are by voice command and by gestures. And that can be really handy if you have your camera mounted away from you, so you don't have quick access to touch the shutter button. But we do have to enable them in the settings first. They are disabled by default. So again, we're going to swipe down from the top to bring up our settings. And the first one here, you can see a picture of a hand. That's the gesture control. We can tap on that. We'll enable it. And it gives us some settings there. And it actually shows us the gestures that we have to do. So now, if I put my palm up, you can see the camera is now recording. I can put my palm up again. And the camera is going to stop recording. And it depends what mode you're in. If you're in photo mode, it will go ahead and take a photo. We also get a new icon on the screen there. You can see a picture of a hand. That way you know that feature is enabled. So that can be really handy. The other way to use it is by voice control. And I'm going to swipe down here. And we're going to swipe over. You can see we have this other icon up here of a head with some voice coming out of it. We'll tap on that. And we'll turn on voice control. If we scroll down, it gives us a few options about language. And it gives us some voice commands that we can say. So I'm going to go back to the main screen here. So now we can say start recording. And you can see it starts recording. And now I can say stop recording. And it goes ahead and stops. So again, that can be really handy in some scenarios. Now, as you can see, I'm in video mode there, but I can still tell it to take photo. You can see what it did there is it switched us into photo mode and went ahead and took the photo. So when using voice commands, you don't actually have to manually put it in that specific mode. So again, it left us in photo mode, but I can say start recording. So it switched us back into video mode and started the recording. So it gives you quite a few options on how to capture, using the shutter button, using quick capture when the camera's powered off and the shutter button, voice command, and gesture control. So we've taken a look around the menu, some of the features, how to capture. So now at this point, we're going to connect it to the DJI Mimo app, and I'm going to show you how to transfer your content, do some basic editing to it, and how to export it so you can share it. So now at this point in the video, we're going to talk about transferring over our content over to a mobile device for editing or previewing. And as mentioned, depending on the type of content you've captured, in single lens mode, the footage is ready to go. You can transfer it in a few different ways. You don't actually have to bring it in through the app. However, if you've captured in 360 content, then we do need to bring it into the DJI Mimo app so we can edit it. So let's start with single lens mode because we have a few extra options when it comes to transferring content over. A common thing that some people like to do is just pull the memory card right out. Now this only works if you've saved your content to the memory card, not to the internal storage. If you have your content on the internal storage, that'll be in the next step, which I'll show you here in a minute. So this is a simple way to get your 4K footage that you've shot in single lens mode or even your photos. Just plug it into your device. I'm going to be demonstrating on an iPad here, so I'm going to launch the Files app. I've plugged in my card reader, so now you can see it says SD card. We can tap on that. And here are all the files. We can preview everything right from the memory card, or we can go in and move everything over. Now the next way to do it is by plugging the camera directly into the device, and that will be important, especially if you have files stored on the internal memory. To do that, you're going to use the included cable that came with your Osmo 360. We're going to open up our USB-C door, plug one end in, and plug the other end into the device. At this point, we'll now power on the camera. And there's going to be an extra step here. You can see it says File Transfer USB or Charge Only. So you want to select File Transfer. And as you notice there, we now have Osmo 360 listed and SD card, because the Osmo 360 is the internal memory, and then of course the SD card is the SD card. So again, you can go in, preview your footage, and transfer it over. Now both these methods, as mentioned, only work for content shot in single lens mode. So another way we can transfer content is wirelessly using the DJI Mimo app, and this works for content shot in 360, but also content shot in single lens mode. So what we're going to do here is we're going to power the camera on. And then I'm going to go ahead and launch the DJI Mimo app. And it should detect your camera right away and prompt you to connect. There, it's asking us to join the Wi-Fi from the camera. And right away, now it's listing everything that's stored on the camera. And in this view, it's going to be listing content stored on both the memory card and the internal memory. So you don't actually have to switch back and forth. Now, if you launched it and it just went right into the live view of the camera, all you have to do is tap on the home button there and then tap on album. And again, that'll start reading from the memory card. Now at the top here, you can see it says device. So that's listing the camera. But if you want to look at stuff that you've downloaded previously, you can go to local, and that's stuff that's already been downloaded to your tablet or smartphone. At this point, we can go in, we can preview our media, we can play it, and we can also download it to the device so we can power the camera off. But what is really interesting, we don't actually have to transfer anything over in order to edit it. We can edit directly off the camera, right off the memory card. And that can be extremely important because sometimes these devices have limited storage. So for some people, they may prefer to transfer it over. For others, they may want to edit right off the camera. You can download multiple clips at once. Tap that icon there at the top, and then we can select the clips that we want to transfer. And then we tap this down arrow at the bottom, and that's going to transfer the content over to the device. Now, it's really important to note, if it's normal traditional 4K footage that you captured in single lens mode, that will be stored in the local album, but it will also be available in your camera roll. However, any 360 content that you've captured, because camera rolls don't support that spherical video, it will only be available in the DJI album. You actually have to export it as a flat video first before you can have it in your camera roll. We get a progress bar here at the top that's showing us the status of the transfers, and we can tap that X there if you do need to cancel it. So now if I click on local, it's going to have all the new footage that I've transferred over. And you'll be able to know what content is what because every specific format has its own little icon. So for example, this is just a flat video, has a picture of a camera icon, has the same corresponding icons in the camera, whereas this one has that kind of globe, and that's signifying that it's 360-degree video. So I've transferred everything over, so I can go ahead and power the camera off now. But as mentioned, that step is not necessary. To get back to the footage that we've downloaded, I'll tap on album, and then again, there's everything there. Now this is flat video filmed in single lens mode, so it's ready to share instantly. We can tap up there, and we can share it to all the different platforms, but we can do some basic editing to it. You know, we can trim the front and back, set the aspect ratio, do some color grading. So as mentioned, that content is ready to go. You don't actually have to do anything to it. However, the 360 content is a little bit different. We do have to process it, and there's a lot we can do with it. So I'm going to keep it very basic, just so you can get up and filming and get some of your first videos exported. So I'm going to bring up a 360 video here. As you can see, we can move around to different viewpoints. We can zoom in. But the first thing we probably want to do is set our aspect ratio. Right now it's in a portrait format, so if you're going to be uploading it to social media, you might want to leave it in that format. If you're going to be uploading it to platforms such as YouTube, we're probably going to want to change it to a 16:9. And we do so by tapping there. That will list all the different aspects that we can export it as. So I'm going to select 16:9. As you can see, that's more of a traditional format now. But as you can see, we can still move around. So we have to tell it what angles we want before we export it. Now this is a 6-minute video, so there's a good chance I don't want that whole video if I'm just uploading something quick, especially if it's for social media or a short. So what we can do is trim it down a little bit. So I'm just going to scrub through here. I'm going to find a section that I want. So say I just want a small clip. I found the spot that I want to start. I can hit the trim button. I'll click the scissor icon there. And now I can just drag, and you can see it's putting this red mark. So that's the area that we're going to keep. I'm going to put a check mark, and then again I'll hit that check mark. So now we just have a 1-minute clip. So that might be a little more manageable for uploading to social media. Now you could leave it the full 6 minutes if you wanted, but for the sake of this video, I just want a little clip. Once we've got it trimmed to the length we want, what we have to do is tell the camera where to look. I may want an export of me riding the bike, or I may want a front-facing view riding the bike. So we have to tell it what we want, and there's a couple different ways in which we can do it. So let's go back to the beginning of the video here. The first way is by using keyframes. So for example, if I want to be in the video, I want the camera facing me. What I'm going to do is select my zoom level. We're using a pinch gesture there. So say I want that, and I want the camera in that position. I'm now going to add a keyframe. As we scrub through the video, you can see it left a little diamond there, so that's the first keyframe. And I know this might sound a little overwhelming at first if this is something that's brand new to you. It's actually really easy, and once you've done it a few times, you'll pick it up really quick. So we can just keep scrolling along. Now, if we find we're getting off center, we can just readjust things, add another keyframe, and again, we'll just go through the video. Now here you can see I'm getting off center again because I was going around a bend. So there I'm going to want to reposition it, add another keyframe. Keep going here. Everything looks good. And we'll go to the end of the video. There, it's getting off center a little bit. So there we go. That looks good. Let's go back to the beginning and we can play it back just to preview it. If we're not happy with it, we can make adjustments. So I'm going to stop that. For example, we can go to any one of these keyframes. We can tap on it and it turns into a minus sign, so we can go ahead and delete it. Now, what's really interesting with 360 is that we don't have to keep it static. So we may want to start with the camera facing me, but then we might want to spin it. So that's pretty easy to do as well. So we've started with that keyframe with the camera facing me, but say it about there. I want it to transition into something different. I'm just going to add another quick keyframe. Now we could move the camera at this point, but then what would happen is that it's going to start spinning right from the beginning, but I don't want that. I want it to face me for the first part of the video. At that second keyframe, that's when I want the camera to start moving. So from there to about here is where I want the camera to move. So I'm going to drag the camera around, reposition things, and then again add a keyframe. And what you'll notice here, if I hit play, you can see the camera spun around there. And now it's going to slowly spin back because we already have a keyframe set here where it was facing me. So if we don't want it to do that, we would have to delete that keyframe and just readjust it the way we want it. Now you can get really creative. They have different fields of view here that are already pre-set up, or as mentioned, you can just use a pinch gesture, and you can even get to that little tiny planet kind of look, which some people like. You just have to remember every time you change the perspective, you have to add the keyframe. Now, if you've made a whole bunch of keyframes and it's just a mess, you want to start over, they have a button here called reset. So you can just tap on reset and that's going to reset everything back. Just keep in mind when you do a reset, it's also going to take the trimming that we've done at the beginning. So it's now back to a 6-minute video. So that way it was manual keyframing, but they also have some built-in tools to make it a little bit easier in some scenarios depending on what you're trying to do. So I'm going to trim this video up again just so we have a small little section. So that works just like that. So we now have this 25-second clip, and as you can see, it's not framed very nicely. I could go in and manually keyframe, but what we can do is something called tracking. So I'm just going to put myself in the middle of the screen there, and I'm going to click on the tracking button. Just make sure you're at the beginning. You're going to select the object or person you want tracked. It doesn't have to be a person. You could track a tree, a building, a car. Now I'm going to hit start tracking, and it's going to go through the video, and it's going to keep me centered in the screen. So you just have to let it play through. You can see at the beginning of the video there, it's adding this green bar over it. So anywhere it has that green bar, that means it's been tracked. When you're done, you just hit stop tracking, or it'll stop when it gets to the end of the video. So now if we hit play, you can see it's going to keep us centered in the frame. We didn't have to actually go and manually keyframe it. If you're not happy with the tracking or you want to redo it, all we have to do is tap this green area. Anywhere there's green, that means there's tracking information there. We tap on it and we can hit clear tracking. There's a couple other ways we can reframe our video. Now another way we can reframe our video is with gyro tracking. So if we tap on that, in gyro tracking, we can use our finger to move it around. We can still zoom in and zoom out, but we can also just move the device. So that'll give us different perspectives depending on how we move it. And to capture it, we have to hit record. And as it's recording, we can use a combination of moving the device and moving it with our finger. So again, all that will be recorded into the timeline. And again, we can delete that by tapping on it and hit clear framing. So that's a basic look at reframing. As mentioned, it might be a little overwhelming, but it's actually pretty easy to do once you get onto it. Now, also at the bottom, it gives us some more editing tools. We can do some color grading. We have some glamour effects. We can add music to the clip. When it's time to export it, we're now going to export it as a flat video. That's going to be like a traditional video file that we can upload to social media. We're going to tap on the export button there at the top. Now, if we were just to go ahead and export right now, you can see it's going to export it at 1080, but we might want higher resolution. If you're exporting it as short form content, then 1080 is more than enough. But if you want even higher quality, we can tap on that where it says 1080. And here we can adjust our resolution. We can put it all the way up to 4K. And we can even adjust the bit rate if we want it higher quality. It gives us an option for 10-bit color. That's going to make the color look a little bit better. And we can even turn on noise reduction. However, when you enable noise reduction, it will disable that 10-bit color. Once you're happy with everything, we can just hit export. And it's going to go ahead and save it to the camera roll as a normal flat video. All the framing that we've included and any edits will be included in that version. And the nice thing about 360 is you could export a couple different versions, different variations of the same video. So for example, you might want a 30-second clip of the camera facing forward. You can go ahead and do that and then go back in and do another 30-second clip of the camera facing you. Perhaps you want a clip with it a tighter shot of you and then maybe one zoomed out so it's got more of the scenery in the background. With 360, you can get really creative and you can export multiple angles. Unlike single lens mode or any type of traditional camera, once you hit record, the video that you have is what you have. You can't reframe it, you can't change the position, and you can't change the field of view. So that's one of the main selling points of 360 is that you can have full creative control later on while you're editing. You don't have to worry about so much of the framing and all the details in the moment. You can just mount the camera, start recording, and you can do all that later on when you're editing. So yeah, folks, that is my beginner's guide for the DJI Osmo 360. It's a great little camera and it's brand new, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot of updates to it over the coming months. DJI will probably be adding new features, new capabilities, new ways to edit within the app. So it's very important to make sure you keep your firmware up to date. If it prompts you to update the firmware because it's detected an update, make sure you install it. And if this is a camera that you're interested in and you're just learning about 360, Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, as I will be making more advanced tutorials going over some of the other features of this camera. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into the editing app, cover things a little bit more in detail for those who are just learning. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it had value. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.